Hi friends, my name's Trish Roberts. You're watching Faint Signals from Vega. So today is Christmas Day in Australia, and some people find it problematic and other people really enjoy it. And some people get very lonely, and there are people who suicide. It's just one of those things that where everything shuts down, and some people don't have much support and they don't have much in the way of family. You'll have to excuse my eyes today. It's extreme pollen count today, and I always react badly to extreme pollen counts. Lots of people do hay baling at this time too, which is usually why it's extreme in rural Tasmania. But anyway, I happen to be, by the way, someone who's not a big fan of Christmas, but then, you know, Christmas is for children often. But then I sort of think about all the, you know, it's a kind of a bit of a gluttonous time, particularly when there's a genocide happening in Yemen and there's lots of children dying of famine. One child every 10 minutes is dying of famine in Yemen. So it's kind of, I think of things like that at times like this. And then, of course, I think about all the animals who are being, there's been an extreme amount of animals, sentient animals, who were tortured and killed so that we could celebrate over their dismembered bodies, celebrate peace on earth and goodwill to everybody over the dismembered bodies and decomposing flesh and secretions of you know, these sentient animals who love life just like we do and did not want to die. And so, you know, that's a sort of, particularly when you become vegan, you find that sort of the celebration of peace on earth, or any celebration, and having dismembered bodies of animals and secretions and whatever, is a very strange thing. It's difficult to deal with. Lots of vegans tend to, at this time, they'll bring along some really yummy vegan dishes for people to eat. That's what, when we did attend Christmas celebrations when we lived on the mainland, and there were more family there, we would bring along vegan dishes, and it was funny how other people who were not vegan would really enjoy those dishes, and in fact would sometimes knock off what we made instead of eating the other things. So, but you know, that's something that vegans need to be prepared for, you know, when you attend these things, or at least let the host know that you're vegan if they're providing the food. You know, if the host is providing the food, then you can give them the heads up, and they can manage to not add. It's very simple not to add animal products to a lot of things. And there's a lot of desserts. You can make all kinds of things, cakes and puddings and all sorts of things. I make them. Yummy and delicious, and they're vegan. And no animal had to be tortured and killed for those cakes and puddings and everything. And there's also wonderful, you know, sort of main meals you can make. You know, so, you know, that's something you can do to give people the heads up. Now, in Australia, it's a bit late for people here who are vegan, but this is for those in the United States or wherever else who might be attending a Christmas celebration tomorrow. You know, you can sort of give people the heads up and bring your own food. But I'm sure you've already sussed that out if you're vegan. The point I really wanted to make about this issue is that if you're not vegan and you're watching this, please consider what you're actually, when you attend these events, any sort of event, whether it's any celebration, if we really think about it, celebrating over these dismembered sentient beings who love life, and they lived a really short but torturous life, or maybe not so short, like dairy cows, 5 years, where they are repeatedly impregnated, and their children are taken from them, and you know, and they grieve for days, and The male calves are killed because they are byproducts of the dairy industry. And eggs are the same. Oh, well, eggs, you know, the mother, the hens live tortured lives, sometimes in tiny cages, and they cannot do anything that's normal, anything that's behaviorally normal, and it's incredibly stressful. Or they're in these huge warehouses where they have hardly any room to move, but they call it free range. That's a big scam, these so-called humane animal products. If you look into it, you know, they're often, it's still torturous. They still end up being killed in the end. But even if it was the most heavenly place, you know, it's still taking away their lives. It's still non-consensual. It's still enslaving, and that's something that we need to move away from as a species. We need to move away from that, and we really need to embrace nonviolence and justice. So if we're also you know, advocating for all kinds of other human rights issues, we need to consider when we're celebrating, or even just every day, you know, the things that we're eating and wearing on our bodies. They were sentient beings, and they loved life just like we did, and did not want to die. And we took away their lives for a few moments of palate pleasure, because as I regularly say in my videos about veganism, we don't need animal products at all to survive. We can easily meet all our nutrition requirements from plants and other non-animal sources. So the only reason that we're taking away the lives of 1 trillion plus land and aquatic animals is because we think they taste good, or for habit, you know, pleasure, basically habit, pleasure, convenience, and tradition. And not only are we taking away their lives, but we're also destroying the planet that 99.99% of the planet's population who are non-human, it's their home too. So we're destroying the planet because animal agriculture is arguably the greatest driver of the climate crisis. And I have pointed out in recent times the the largest study to date, the largest research study to date of 119 countries and 40,000 farms from farm to fork, 90% of all the different foods that we eat. There was great research done on that by a UK research team who were not vegan, who were not put up to it by vegans or anything. It was just a science-based, and it was in a science journal. And the results of that, the single biggest action one can take to address climate change, climate crisis, is to eat a plant-based diet. That means a diet free of dairy, eggs, meat, etc. And I, of course, include honey in that because that vegans don't eat animal products. And I'll explain in a little bit why I don't eat honey. But, you know, this is something that if we're going to be for nonviolence and if we're going to be for, you know, for justice, then we really have to start including the 99.99% of the planet's population. To ignore that a huge amount of the planet's population, other fellow earthlings, is kind of, well, it's speciesist, but it's kind of ridiculous, isn't it? You know, to ignore just because they happen to be another species, just because they cannot stand up to our technology and to our domination, doesn't mean that we have the rights to do what we do to them. You know, because that's that's a human supremacist thing. And we do that, of course, to humans. You know, if we see vulnerable groups like indigenous groups, or we see people whom we want to invade their countries and take their resources, if we can get away with it, we do. You see, it's all connected, and that's why when I talk about anti-war and anti-imperialism, I usually mention veganism because it's all related. It's all the same mindset of otherization, otherizing a group, and targeting a group and making them a target of violence. And we do that with non-human animals too. We've otherized them to the point where we think they are much lesser than we are, that they are stupid, in quotes, or just because they're not like us, therefore we can do whatever we want to them. See the comparison here? So, you know, that mindset never stops, the mindset we have toward non-human animals. It doesn't remain there, and I say that regularly because it's true. It really is. That mindset never stops at our attitudes towards non-human animals and eating, wearing, and using them. It always expands to other animals, who are human animals, and who happen to be a different group to us, whether they're LGBTIQ, whether they're Muslims, whether they're black people, whether they're indigenous people. You know, the list goes on of the otherization, and it depends on what is convenient at the time. You know what I'm saying? It's sort of like very cynical, really. With other animals, we tend to fetishize certain species of animals arbitrarily because we happen to like the look of them, or they're like us, or whatever. You know, like primates or dolphins or whales or whatever. And it's completely arbitrary. Like, they don't have any more sentience. You know, there's no levels of sentience. You're either self-aware and you interact with the environment, and so forth. You interact with others, and you know, there's no levels of sentience. So just because whales or dolphins or primates or whatever are you know, like us, or you know, that we recognize traits in them that are like us, doesn't mean they're more important. And that so you know, there are fish, you know, they may not show any signs of emotion that we can recognize. We don't know what's going on internally for them in their internal world. And because they have no recognizable traits that we kind of have in ourselves, we think, well, they're just things, they're expendable. I often hear people saying, oh, I used to, you know, firstly they'll say I'm vegetarian, then they'll say, and I eat a little bit of fish. Well, that just makes you a non-vegan, really, because being vegetarian means you're eating, wearing, and using animals. You're eating dairy and eggs. You're wearing animal products on your body. You might be going to, you might be horse riding and all sorts of things, who knows. And you are eating a sentient animal too, fish, so you're just non-vegan. And vegetarianism is not veganism. They're nothing alike. And I wish that people would stop conflating the two, because they're nothing alike. So, you know, when people sort of say, oh, well, you know, I eat a bit of fish, as if fish are not sentient, I feel like saying, well, what? So certain animals you eat, wear, and use, animals you won't eat, wear, and use, and then other animals, just because they don't have recognizable traits or similar cognition skills or whatever, even though they're sentient, you want to eat them, you want to use them. That's not fair. You know, like if that was the case, you know, there'd be humans who had disabilities that we could just exploit and enslave and kill and whatever. You see what I mean? It's like you have to apply consistency. So, you know, it's something we need to think about. Aquatic animals are not lesser because we can't recognize behaviors in them which are like us. Whether they're like us or not, it doesn't matter. If they're sentient, that's all that matters. Sentience is all that matters. Now, I'm getting away from this celebration that people do at Christmas time, but it just makes me sad when I think about how many animals, more animals than usual, the 1 trillion land and aquatic animals plus that are used, tortured and killed every year for trivial reasons of palate pleasure. That's the usual thing, and at this time, at celebrations, more animals are, sort of put through torture and are killed for this sort of a bit of a gluttonous festival, a bit of a gluttonous celebration. And it's so unnecessary because plant-based diet is delicious, and as I said, we don't need these animal products at all to survive. So, we're doing all this violence, participating in all this violence and getting other people to kill animals and torture them for us, simply because we want a few moments of palate pleasure. And people often think that it's all about meat. Well, dairy is even worse than as a torturous kind of activity, a consumption of dairy. It still involves tremendous violence. And so do eggs. So, like if you're vegetarian, please consider going vegan, because there's no point in being a vegetarian as far as I'm concerned. It still involves tremendous violence. And it's not addressing climate crisis at all. And I invite you to watch Cowspiracy, The Sustainability Secret. And also watch What the Health, the film, the documentary. And by the way, Eunice Wong, the partner of Chris Hedges, they both went vegan after watching Cowspiracy. Chris Hedges is a Pulitzer Prize recipient. Eunice Wong is a writer, an actor, a director. She's an amazing person. She's written this book, What the Health, and that goes along with the documentary. It's got lots of great information in it. It hasn't been released yet, but knowing how Eunice is so she works on these things very hard, and I'm sure it will be a wonderful book. The film is very interesting, What the Health. And she wrote also, she helped write the companion book to Cowspiracy, Cowspiracy, The Sustainability Secret. So anyway, Eunice is, I invite you to check that book out when it comes out, What the Health. And of course you can find lots of great nutrition information about a plant-based diet from a nutrition site which is based on science called nutritionfacts.org. So I invite you to check that one out too. So anyway, the idea about celebrations, we need to reassess what we're doing on these days of celebrations, whether they be, Christmas or any of the other celebrations that are happening during the year, because it makes no sense, and it's not morally consistent to keep celebrating over the tortured bodies and secretions and products of sentient animals who love life just like we do. It makes no sense, really, does it? We can celebrate over, sort of life-giving plants that, that are nutritious and belong in our bodies because of our biology. We're robust frugivores. I've said before, if you look in the dentition of at the dentition of a dog who is an omnivore, it's very, very different to humans. Very different dentition. Our bodies, these animal products are toxic to our bodies. Hundreds of thousands of people, millions in fact, throughout the world, millions and millions, die of a direct result of consuming animal products because they're cholesterol-ridden. The animal protein is really toxic to our bodies. There's plenty of protein in plants. If you see any vegan bodybuilders, it shows, you can get plenty of protein from plants. The protein, animal protein, is toxic for our intestines, for our bodies. Cholesterol promotes diabetes. It makes our muscles insulin resistant. So animal products actually are contributing greatly, and this is science-based, to the diabetic epidemic, the diabetes epidemic in the world, because animal products, the cholesterol in them, actually makes our bodies, our muscles, it makes them insulin resistant. That's something you won't hear from the Diabetes Association, but it's a scientific fact. So anyway, this is probably, I'm probably sort of meandering off, which I tend to do, but I hope that you'll join me next, whatever celebration in the future, join me in a much more peaceful celebration, an inclusive celebration, and let's respect the other sentient animals who are by far the much greater population of this planet, and let's stop enslaving animals and domesticating them so that we can use them as things. It's kind of nuts, really, you know, to be doing that, particularly at this stage when animal agriculture is destroying the planet. It's arguably the greatest driver of the climate chaos, climate crisis. So there are so many reasons to be vegan, so many reasons that it's kind of a really sort of out there thing if we're denying the benefits of being vegan to not only other animals and ourselves, but to the planet. To deny the science is just sort of really, it's a willful ignorance if people are still pretending like animal agriculture isn't destroying the planet and isn't the greatest, arguably the greatest driver to this climate crisis, which looks like it's going to end our species and most other species. So isn't it time we started to be honest with ourselves and stop finding excuses? Stop finding excuses that are so poor that can be easily debunked, all of them. And just embrace nonviolence and justice and go vegan. It's really, it's not difficult, it's not elitist. It's elitist to continue eating animal products because it's destroying the planet. It's contributing greatly to world hunger, and it's also killing, you know, hundreds of billions of animals. It's elitist to keep eating animal products and wearing animal products and using animals. So let's stop making up these excuses that it's not healthy, that's bunk. Let's stop making these excuses. Let's stop making excuses that animal agriculture isn't a great driver of climate change. The science is there. You know, it's at this point it's indisputable, irrefutable. So let's stop pretending, and because we don't want to make that change. You know, that's what it's all about. All these excuses is because we don't want to make that change. We want to point to capitalism as the issue. We want to point to corporations. We want to point to fracking. We want to point to, you know, we want to blame external causes. Have you heard that Tolstoy quote? Everybody wants to change the world, but nobody wants to change themselves. So we have to change. We, you and me. If we want a non-violent and just world, we, you and I, have to change and go vegan. If we want to seriously address climate change, the climate crisis, which is going to lead to our extinction, then we have to do something, you and I, and that means we can start by going vegan. We can do other things, but that's something we don't need permission from banks or corporations or government. We can do that right now. You can finish watching this video, check out howtogovegan.org. And start right there. You can start right today, right now. What a great time to start, just before 2019. And if you internalize the ethical position, which is what veganism is, it's not a diet or whatever. Veganism is an ethical position. If you internalize that ethical position, you will be vegan for the rest of your life. I was watching Ellen DeGeneres just recently. I don't normally watch that show, but I was watching a special of Ellen DeGeneres, and then she said, well, I was vegan for 8 years and now I'm not vegan. She said, now I'm not vegan. I eat a bit of fish and I eat eggs from some hen who isn't enslaved. Well, that's enslavement, whether you're being really, really nice to them or not. You're using their products that are theirs, and actually hens do have attachment to eggs. It's their eggs, whether they're fertilized or not. There's a whole a few blog posts I can put in this information section about eggs, backyard eggs, and what's wrong with them. And it's still just, it's assuming that these products of these other animals are ours. But anyway, so Ellen DeGeneres is talking about how she used to be vegan and now she's not. Well, I'd argue she was never vegan, because there's no such thing as an ex-vegan if you've actually internalized the ethical position. And so I could see that coming, and I think she was always having a little bit of this and a little bit of that, animal products. So she was never really vegan, because if you've internalized the ethical position, it wouldn't matter if you were the only person in the room that was vegan and there were no animal you were surrounded by animal products and there was nothing vegan to eat, you wouldn't start eating animal products. It's just something that vegans don't do. You'd rather go hungry at an event if you didn't happen to bring your own stuff or have something to munch on. You'd rather go hungry than eat animal products. Because you've internalized the ethical position, and these products represent violence. They represent the lives of other sentient animals, and just like I wouldn't eat humans, for the same reasons I'm not a cannibal, as a friend said one time, as the same reason I'm not a cannibal, that's what the same reasons apply to why I don't eat other animals, non-human animals. I was just going to talk about the celebration aspect of it, but to really explain why we shouldn't be eating animal products and why we should celebrate with all the many, many species of plants instead of the 4 species of animals that we tend to focus on, and how sad that is. Celebrating with all these wonderful plant products, plants, and the wonderful many varied dishes you can make is just such a much better idea for a celebration of nonviolence and peace, and any celebration. Anyway, so thanks so much for watching. Please check out howtogovegan.org. It's my podcast. It has lots of information. You can listen to it anytime. So howtogovegan.org. It's a comprehensive vegan resource podcast. My name's Trish Roberts. You're watching Faint Signals from Vega. If I don't talk to you before New Year's, have a wonderful 2019. May it be everything that you hope it to be. May there be peace in the world. May there one day be a vegan planet. And may anyone who is wishing good wishes for the people, for other animals and the planet, may all those wishes be fulfilled if they're actually beneficial for us all. Because that's what it should be. Everything that we do should really be about consideration of the other sentient animals on the planet, and also the planet itself. If everybody started doing that, wouldn't that be amazing? Wouldn't that be amazing to live on a planet like that? So let's try and each do that in our own lives. I have a long way to go, but I'm trying, and I hope that you'll join me. So have a wonderful celebration, or if you're not celebrating and you have no family, I send you lots of love, and I hope that you do something really good for yourself. Think about and do something for the children in Yemen if you can. Make a donation to a reputable charity, and also promote anti-war and anti-imperialism, because that's at the core of all these terrible things that are happening in the world, the refugee crisis, the refugees, and the violence. A lot of it is caused by imperialism and the wars that come from that. Okay, so thanks so much for watching. My name's Trish Roberts. You're watching Faint Signals from Vega. Till next time, bye for now.